Okay, without further ado, let's jump into some numbers. So we're talking about sports tech on a global scale. Ron told you, I told you, we have 3 reports, and each of the reports, North American, Asia Pacific, and European, showed us how much money went into sports tech in 2021. And the numbers that you see on here are absolutely insane compared to the years before. What's the key takeaway from this slide? We have 11.6 billion US dollar in total in sports tech in the last year. I'm going to share you a comparison over the last 5 years to show you how big that is. And we see that, not so surprisingly, North America is the leading continent or region. Asia Pacific, as all the other years before, is number 2, and Europe is number 3. Nothing has changed in that aspect. The growth, however, is bigger in the runner-ups in Asia Pacific, over 370% plus, in Europe over 325% plus compared to 2020. North America only 161%, but that 6.5 billion is absolutely massive. Why do I think that is massive? Look at this overview over the last 5 years. Again, we have the breakdown per region, and you can see in 2018, which was the biggest year for sports tech so far, we had a combined 4.7 billion US dollar in funding. 1 year, the entire sports tech ecosystem, 4.7 billion was the record. Now look at 2021. North America alone has 6.5 billion US dollar in funding. Even Asia has 3.1, which is also not too far from the all-time high from 2018 globally. And also Europe, 1.9 billion, not so bad, I would say. What else is important to highlight is that in 2021, US had North America had 6.5 million, which is more than Asia Pacific and Europe combined. That is not new, because last year we had the same situation. It was even more extreme. Last year, North America had twice as much in funding as the rest of the world. And that distance has become a bit smaller. That is one of the insights for this year. So 2 key takeaways is it's been an absolute record year. And secondly, the distances, they vary over time. And the distance between North America and Asia Pacific and Europe got a bit smaller than the years before, but the overall number still very, very dominant from a North American perspective. That's my key takeaway from this slide. Ron, did you see anything else?
No, just a couple of questions already. Talking about, well, let's address the first thing, which is maybe what Mohammed asked about. Do we have any other regions? He was asking about North Africa. Mohammed, not a lot happens in the rest of the world. That 11.7 billion that Ben talked about at the top is 99.99 something percent. No, actually not 99. I think it's about 98 something, because Brazil is the only other market where we've seen some significant investment. And North Africa, we don't see that much. I've seen maybe a couple of deals in Egypt. I was asking Rishabh if he remembers anything, but that's about it. Yeah, the rest of everything that Ben covered is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and maybe one more question here was, what is your 2022 estimate? Is 2021 a COVID rebound year, or will 2022 exceed 2021? I believe you have a bit more of numbers potentially, but as far as I remember, it's again on the road to being a record year. And
yeah, man, Q1, Andre, has been an absolute smasher. We've already seen a bunch of big deals, big acquisitions, big funding rounds in various areas. The interesting thing is that for 21, we saw exit of 2020. So Q4 of 2020 was a big bump, and then 21 kind of carried it. Interestingly, in 2021, Q4 was the smallest quarter for investment. It's like basically everybody was like that typical image. If you see somebody with their pockets out empty, the investors were like that at the end of the year. But I mean, for whatever reason, targets, etc. But we've seen 2022 start really strong. Will it hit these levels? I don't know. It is a bit nuts, but actually, I think Rishabh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but where overall funding, I think we've already crossed 3 or 3.5, almost 4 billion, because there've been some big deals already. So yeah, we're well on track to hit that 11.7 billion number. But let's see how it pans out. We're on track, let's say. That's a short answer.
Just quick answers to some other questions there. Jose is asking which countries are leading in Europe and Asia Pacific. We'll get to that in a second. Santosh asking, is there any data around what stage these companies are? This is a bit more something for the VC report that we have later in the year. You can have a look at the previous one. Sometimes it's not so easy to say which stage they were in because you don't always get that info. So we typically look at different brackets of how big the funding round was as a quick answer. And Pedro is asking a question that is very specific. Not sure if we're going to cover that in this webinar. Let's pause that for a while, Pedro.
Yeah, quickly. Also, Karamveer asked previously, we're going to touch blockchain in sports. Kind of, Karamveer. It's one of the big trends. I spoke about NFTs. Ben will get to that later.
Yeah. So far we have looked at the regions, and one also key takeaway is the order of the three regions is very consistent over the last couple of years. The distances just vary a little bit. And now we're gonna go one level deeper. We're moving from regions to countries with, of course, some more insights. This is also a very interesting one. Let's speak about the right graphic first. The right graphic shows the top 10 countries on this planet by funding in sports tech in 2021, so the entire last year. And a few things on this, two things mainly. The US has been incredibly strong, over 5 billion in investment in 2021, which is almost as much as the countries 2 to 10 combined. It's actually more than the countries on position 2 to 9 combined. Only Finland changes that perspective. On the back of 241 deals. So it's not only a few big ones like in some of the other countries here. So it's a lot of deals, of course, also some big ones, definitely. And also, if you look at the company, the countries behind, India, a really strong year, almost 2 billion. And then there is a huge gap to Canada already. So particularly a very strong year for the US and India. On the left side, what does that mean for the order from 2017 to 2021, so the last 5 years? Here it is in fact so that the US has more funding than all the other countries from position 2 to 10 combined. The US has more than 13 billion US dollar in funding over the last 5 years on the back of over 1,200 deals. This is also definitely really, really amazing. Again, this means, based on 2021, we see that India is in a really good position and actually getting really close to China. If you have watched our webinars over the last couple of years, it was always the US on top, China clearly number 2, sometimes even getting really close to the US. Now it looks a bit more like India can potentially take over China. So if there would be another year like the one that we've seen last year, India would take over number 2 spot already. We didn't think that would be possible when we did this webinar in like 2 or 3 years ago, but now India is performing really, really well, and we're gonna dive into why that actually is. And just one more thing to this slide, positions 1 to 8 are the same, like the countries that are in those 8 positions on both 2021 and the last 5 years. So there's not much change there. Only the last 2, Hong Kong, Finland, and Sweden, Hong Kong, they change a bit that order. That's on the country overview, the top 10 globally. Ron, did I miss anything? Anything you want to add?
Sorry, Ben, I'm busy answering questions. I'm not listening to you too much, but there have been quite a few.
Anything we have to address right now?
No, I think all good. Carolina asked, what is the deal in Finland? Finland is all about putting a ring on it, Carolina. That was my lame joke. It's Ura, which they 100 million round last year. Dragutin asked, what market segment is more successful, services or gadgets? Interesting question, Dragutin. We'll come to sectors in a bit, so I'll actually save that question. But we've given a breakup of that. Fabio, actually, I was scrambling to answer your question. Eagle eye, Fabio, I have to call you. Why is Germany above the UK when the amount is a bit smaller? Fabio, I believe you've got a nice little typo, so points to you. The ranking is correct, But there was a typo. This is my mistake. So cheers to that. And Adesh says the average deal is far higher in India than in the US. Again, good observation, Adesh. You are spot on there.
Yeah, valid points, by the way. Good comments there.
But sorry, I will say, Adesh, again, we'll come to this in the top startups. Out of that 1.8 billion that you see in India, 1.2 is just one company. So which company that is, we'll address later.
Yeah, there's always so much we could potentially talk about, and so much other outcomes that you can draw, or things you can analyze. We try in this webinar to go like deeper and deeper and deeper, and and so we also come to the sectors and to the companies behind those funding rounds, all of that.
But loving the questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Yeah, absolutely cool. I like them as well. Right. Then we stay with a country view. And now that's one of the slides where I'm like, okay, this is a lot of information to process. I'm just going to let you know what the key insights for me are. One thing before I do this, if you look on the table on the very left, this is of course not countries, and that has a reason, because in North America, as you can also see, it's basically only the US and Canada who contribute to all the funding rounds. So for the North American ecosystem, we switch to a state-wise look, and this is why you see states instead of countries. For the other two, it's countries. Let's start on the left, and this is the view on 2021, just last year, not the last 5 years. We're going to get to that in a second. Three things that I noticed in North America. First of all, California is really, really strong. 2 billion funding over the last year alone, which is twice as much almost as Florida. Really strong year from California. Speaking about Florida, biggest jump in that table. Florida, and Ron is going to let us know why, went up 6 positions more than any other state in that case in the top 10 than anyone else. And number 3 is New York is losing positions. New York was like the sports tech capital of the world all the time. Now, only in North America, it went down to position number 3. That is my main observation for North America. Speaking about Asia Pacific, I've said it before, you can very detailed see it here. India had a very, very strong year 2021. Also, if you compare that to the North American states, almost 1.9 billion in funding is amazing, and it's a clear gap to number 2, China, which is observation number 2. China had some really strong years and like massive deals, but it looks like that they're falling a little bit behind China. Not that the overall deal amount is not a good one, but the gap is a really, really significant one. And number 3 for Asia Pacific is that Hong Kong is new in the ranking. They were not in the top 10 last year. Now they entered, nice amount, position number 3, really something to look at. And then coming to Europe, biggest insight is France took the number 1 spot in 2021. Again, with a huge gap to UK and Germany, and almost as much as UK and Germany combined. That is a very, very strong year from France. But if you look at the very last column, it says share of top deal is 97.7%. You can already guess which company out of Paris that I can tell it was. That company alone contributed to 97.7% of the funding of France in that year. 2 other observations. We have Denmark jumping 11 positions to position number 5, biggest winner over the last year. And maybe a slight disappointment, because last year we were like, okay, they're really attacking the top 3 countries in Europe, is Sweden. Sweden went down 5 positions, not too much funding this year. We really thought, like I said, they could potentially enter the top 3 on this page. Are there questions that we have to address before I move on to the next one?
Yes, we do. First one to address, I think was it Jose who had asked which countries are leading in Europe and Asia Pacific? You'd asked that a while back. Basically, Jose, this is your answer. Andre asked, yes, there is. Should it not be $1 billion? Was it $1 million? Did Qatar do only 200,000 investments? That is correct. Ite asks a very interesting question, actually, and this is one that we've talked about a lot, which is where are companies based? Ite, you're absolutely right. PlaySite did get 82 million in 2021, as did Minute Media and all these. But we go by what the company claims is their headquarters. If you go to the PlaySite LinkedIn page, they say they're based out of New Jersey. Now, we know that a lot of these companies are Israeli. A lot of this great tech comes from there. But if a company says that they're from the US, then we have to put those amounts in the US. So, yeah, we have that deal, as many others, and we have actually done research with Israeli investors on this topic. But for the purpose of our calculation, we go with where the company says that it's based. Vincent asked which funding makes France in top spot. Of course, it is not rare news that it is so rare. There are a lot of questions. Do you have the European ranking taking out the biggest deals in the top 5 countries that represents more than? I didn't understand the question, Jamie. Do you have the European ranking taking out the biggest deal? Okay. Actually, that's an interesting one, which is why we show the share of top deal on the right hand side. So spot on, Jamie. You can see in some. Sorry.
It's a good one. It would be nice to see. It's a good.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So, for example, you can see in India, 1.8 billion, but 63% is just the top deal. I'm looking at, you look at Japan, Saudi Arabia, all of those are just one deal. Spain as well. It's in 6th position in Europe, and 91% comes from one deal. Finland, 100% comes from one deal, etc. So, yeah, that's why we show that stat exactly to see how much is the biggest deal just bringing the country up, or is there more action in that ecosystem? But remember, this is just 2021.
Can I answer Pedro's questions? Pedro asked...
Pedro, man, you've got to start it too early, man.
Pedro asked, what are the best trends in sports tech? My answer is NFT. His second question is NFT and hype? And I said no.
Okay, there we go. Ask and answer.
No, but we get to topics. I mean, Ron is going to talk about which companies are behind all these numbers that you see here. So there you can already see a few trends also from sectors. And later we do a few deep dives. One of them happens to be on NFTs. So we might have a little chat on that topic over there.
I just saw one message in the chat, which is Corentin asked about Isle of Man. Very interesting observation. Again, Isle of Man is basically, there are 2 esports betting companies which have emerged out of there. They are leveraging the favorable regulations for betting companies. Interestingly, that both are in esports. So those are the 2 Isle of Man companies. There you go, Corentin. You knew it all along.
All right, and bear with me. There's one more country slide. I know it's a lot, lots of data. I'll cut this one short, I promise. So on the slide before, we talked about countries by funding in 2021, just 1 year, last year. Now we have one more slide, countries by funding over the last 5 years. Just again, 3 observations per region. North America, it has finally happened. California has taken over #1 spot from New York. First time, I believe, since we do this analysis. Correct me if I'm wrong. Number 2, Florida, jumping 6 positions, is now officially in the top 3 for North America. And last but not least, the biggest jump in the top 10 has been done by British Columbia, 12 positions now on number 5. I wonder why you're smiling, Ron. Did I say something, or is it something?
No. Sorry, go ahead. I'm getting messages from other people for what's happening here, but go ahead. No, you're good.
Talking about Asia Pacific, what is the main insight there? It's supporting what I've said before. China is still #1 over the last 5 years, but India is only around 700 million behind China on position #2. So I would say they're getting really close, and I'm curious about next year's numbers, or after this year, maybe it has changed already. And the second insight is that Hong Kong, now 10 positions up, has entered the top 3. And maybe a third observation for this region is, you see it yourself, like the last 3 countries, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the numbers are not so big. So it's an ecosystem that is very much focused on the big players, and there are lots of countries who have some potential but have not raised too much money over the last 5 years. Coming to Europe as column number 3 on this slide. France also here has officially taken over the #1 spot. That is inside #1. Inside #2, said it before, last year, Sweden was close, very close to the top 3. Now, after a rather weaker year, it's over 350 million euro of a gap. So probably not going to happen in the near future. And observation #3, maybe one which is close, a bit close to your heart, Ron. Spain has made it into the top 10. We've been talking about it for years. The Iberian countries, Spain and Portugal, they have lots of companies, a few deals as well, but somehow they never managed to get in the top 10 with regards to funding. Now Spain at least has finally made it. These are my observations for this slide.
Yeah, crucial one over here, and to reiterate the point that Ben just made, if you look at the second column after amount, is ranked by number of startups. So you see how deep the ecosystem is, rather than just 1 or 2 successful companies. Good example is Romania, which has been on this list for a long time because of one deal by Superbet, again betting Corentin, which doesn't rank very highly for number of startups. But Spain is in 10th place for funding, but 4th for number of startups, just behind the big 3 of Europe, which is UK, Germany, and France. So Spain has always been a deep ecosystem for sports tech, but doesn't have the volume. But the rest of it, I think, is all fairly straightforward. Hong Kong is NFTs. Good stuff to see the Gulf countries in there as well. That was the most interesting. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. We saw Qatar in the previous slide. Big events happening there. So good to see more regions coming into our ambit, shall we say.
One more question from Corentin in the general chat. Are acquisitions of companies included here? That is something different. So here it's just investment rounds. If you look at the VC report, there we also have an analysis of all the mergers, acquisitions, IPOs, all of that. So if you're looking for those, the VC report is rather something for you. And he's typing. I hope he just says, thank you, perfect. Okay.
There we go.
Nice. All right, so we have moved from regions to countries. What might be next? It is cities. And now it's time for the first poll. Let me quickly start that because I would like to get your opinion on the following question. It should pop up for you now, either directly on your screen or you have to go to the polls tab. My question is, what do you think? Which city has secured the most funding in sports tech in 2021?
Is it the capitals? We've always seen New York as the big city, San Francisco. We saw California topping the list. Or is it a new location? Jacksonville has some big companies. Paris, we've talked about.
So the votes are trickling in. 25 votes are in. I'll give you a bit more time.
I've submitted my vote, Benjamin, but I, of course, know the answer.
Did you pick the winner because you know what the answer is?
I shouldn't have, should I? No, I skewed the numbers.
Take it back. Take it back.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Let me change. No. Yeah, let's go.
So the official result as of now is, so it's a head-to-head race between, as you think, San Francisco and Mumbai. San Francisco has 15 votes. Mumbai now 14. It keeps changing. What did you put in, Ron?
Ben, I will save my answer to the poll. I don't want to prejudice the other voters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as of now, and I guess nobody's voting anymore, San Francisco is #1 with 16 now. All right. And Mumbai 14. All right. Let's solve this. Ta-da! San Francisco only position #3. Big surprise. #1 sports tech city on this planet 2021 is from Mumbai, India. Did you vote for Mumbai?
Amchi Mumbai, Benjamin. Amchi Mumbai. That's what we say. That's my Mumbai.
I cannot see who was voting for what. All right. Coming back to this. So Mumbai managed to cross 1 billion in funding in 2021. Question to you: is it the first time a city has managed to do so?
Yeah.
In sports tech.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw as well. There was this one big BAM tech deal back then, which was a couple million shy of the billion, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think this is the first time I've seen. Basically, it's always one big deal or a couple of big deals which will take it over. It's the first time that we've seen it in an individual year. So, big one. Big props to India.
Swapnil is already guessing, has to be Dream 11. We will see. The companies are coming in just a few slides. Yeah, but for now, so amazing year. Ron.
1 second. Hey, man, Quarantine's taking a shot. Quarantine's taking a shot. The country with a fitness penetration of 0.1%. Hey, man, Quarantine, dude, I don't appreciate this, man. Indians like to get fit as well. I think it's more like 0.5%, maybe 1 even.
He's typing. Better be something nice. Official, really.
Is that the official figure?
Share a link with us.
Okay, we got to verify. Rishabh, verify this fact.
Verify or ban. That's the two options. All right, but coming back to this now, serious guys.
Yeah.
Amazing year from Mumbai. First city ever crossing $1 billion in funding. Jacksonville not far away from it. Again, Ron's going to tell you what happened in Jacksonville. And then, 3 US cities, not so surprising, in the top 5. And then Paris on the back, I can already say it, on the back of Sorare, entering the top 5. Massive year for NFTs, and therefore also Paris with Sorare. These are the top 5 cities of last year. Then let's check region by region what has happened city-wise. And again, it's a lot of information, I know that, but let's have a look at the most important things. Let's start with the right side. This is the table of last year before we come to the map, which is the map of the last 5 years. So right side table for 1 year is that Jacksonville took over the #1 spot in North American sports tech. Also, Vancouver performing really strong, 10 positions up, on position number 4. And if you look at the map, then if you move your attention to the left, a few things that are interesting to see. First of all, in the US, it is a coast game. It's East Coast, it's West Coast, and Jacksonville, so to speak. So there's not too much happening in the Midwest, anywhere in between. It's the 2 coasts again, plus, of course, from Canada, Vancouver and Toronto. And 2 more things that are worth mentioning is that New York City is still the #1 city in North America over the last 5 years. And actually with a significant gap to #2 Jacksonville of over $800 million US. In the rankings before, we have seen that California has taken over #1 spot from New York as a state. The reason why California is not #1 here is that it's a very diverse ecosystem. So they have San Francisco, and then a city that might be surprising to you. Ron is going to shed some light on this, San Luis Obispo. Also California, Santa Monica, Los Angeles, Long Beach. So 5 cities from California alone in the top 10 of North American sports tech. That's why California is strong in the states ranking, but New York still holds the #1 spot of the #1 city in North American sports tech. Anything we have to answer on this slide on?
Actually, yeah, well, not too much, but Ismail asked, do you have the list of the top 10, which you showed earlier? Ismail, it's there. Over the next 3 slides, Ben will walk you through the top 10 in each of the regions. So you'll have to do your own little sheet if you want. And is there a SportsTech hub and investment cluster in Jacksonville? Jaime asks. I don't think so. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard anything. There is, of course, one big company which rules the roost. I don't think that they have any big innovation initiatives of their own, but we'll come to them in a second.
I mean, let's talk about Florida. We have Lead Sports and Health Tech in close to Orlando.
Yep.
They're there. But besides that, we get to the ecosystem slide in a couple of minutes. Nothing that I can recall as of now. And Lead also has a fund operating out of there. That's a proper hub and investment vehicle, I would say. Sweet. Then let's move on to Asia Pacific, again, from a city perspective. And actually, true for both the 2021 look and the last 5 years look is that there is an absolute Indian dominance, which Ron probably enjoys looking at. So both in last year's numbers, but also last 5 years numbers, it's Mumbai and Bangalore on position number 1 and number 2. What I like on the 2021 overview is that we have 2 Australian cities in the top 10, something that is not reflected yet in the top 10 for the last 5 years, but Sydney and Perth had good years last year. And third thing is, if you look at the map on the left side, there is also Tokyo on there. So it's not only India, China, and Hong Kong, it is also Tokyo, even though their year in 2021 was not so strong. So giving a bit of diversity on that map. That is it from my perspective on this map. Anything you want to add, Ron?
Keep going, Ben. Keep going.
Sweet. Then maybe there's a slide that I enjoy a bit more, or you had your slide, I had mine, basically. Yeah, it's Europe. Inside number 1, both last year and last 5 years. Paris is number 1 city in Europe right now. However, we have to see if it stays like this, because all that money is coming from so rare. And yeah, what else would come what else would be there if it wouldn't be so rare? That we will see in yeah, a couple months when we do this webinar again. Second insight, that's for me to celebrate. Germany is doing pretty well. Yeah, Germany is the only country that has 3 cities in both last year's ranking and the overall ranking. So Germany, really good ecosystem. Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich being the 3 cities who lead the race there. And the city where I choose to live, Berlin, is the one leading that pack of 3. Speaking about a pack of 3, let's talk a bit about the Nordics. As you can see on the map on the left side, Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Oulu. So Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. 3 countries from the Nordics in the top 10, contrary to if we look at the south of Europe. So no Spain, no Portugal, no Italy. Might change because there's some things happening in Italy as well. But the Nordic countries traditionally performing well. And also in the top 10 of last year, it's Oulu and Copenhagen in the top 10. Not Stockholm, as we said, Sweden had a bit of a weaker year, but the 1-year comparisons are typically a bit more volatile than the 5-year ones. That is it on the cities in Europe. Anything to answer there?
Yeah, just one comment. Love to see another place I used to call home, Madrid. We talked about Spain earlier. Madrid breaks into the list in 2021. They are in 11th place overall. So expect next year, if there's a strong year, that Madrid will break into the top 10. But most importantly, across the 3 regions, lots of new names. I mean, Vancouver and Toronto have really risen up the ranks in North America. Ben talked about some new cities in Asia, Tokyo entering the ranks, a couple of the Australian cities. Here we see Douglas, Madrid, new locations coming into these rankings. So great to see the sports tech ecosystem growing geographically.
Yeah, and that is my part for now. I've walked you through overall funding, regions, countries, cities, and now we dive a bit more into sectors and companies. So where do all those beautiful numbers come from? And that's Ron's part.
Of course, and Ben has taken half the webinar to go through his part now, so we have to monitor time a little bit. But yeah, guys, loving all the questions, so keep that going. That's in fact slowing us down, not Ben so much, but maybe him as well. But we are going to talk about sectors. We had a question earlier about what areas funding is going into. This just because otherwise it will be too many numbers thrown at you. We have not broken down by geography, but just shown it globally, right? For the geography breakups, please go and download the reports. You'll see how these sectors stack up against each other. For anybody who's not familiar with our sectors, activity and performance is everything to do with the athlete. Any solution that helps an athlete perform better, tracking, recovery, before and after the sport, injury prevention, etc. So those are solutions for the athlete. Fans and content, all the ones in blue. That is all solutions for the fan, anything around fan engagement, fantasy sports, betting, etc. Management and organization is all solutions for the executive, people who are working in the sports industry, media, event management, venue management, etc. You can see the breakup is pretty clear. Fans and content is at 48% of the overall funding, activity and performance at 41, and management and organization, we've always seen this, they fall far behind. B2B solutions don't get as much attention in the sports tech ecosystem, but that is changing. This is the figure, as you've seen, from 2017 to 21. You'll also see that fitness, which dominates the activity hardware and software conversation, this is changing slightly in 2021 alone, where fans are becoming more and more prominent. And a lot of that is driven by Ben's three favorite letters, NFTs, because you'll see fan experiences, which is what we could classify NFT solutions under, because essentially they're just enhancing the fan experience of how they engage with their sport. They alone are accounting for 27% of that 11.7 billion that we saw in slide one. So more than a quarter of all funding is coming from fan experiences, and most of that is related to NFTs. Yeah, so when you look at the subsector ranking, interestingly, the second highest subsector is fantasy sports and betting. Now, this is growing in two regions. We're going to talk about this, what's happening in India, because it's been happening for a long time, about the fantasy sports space, the likes of Dream 11, Hala Play, there are so MPL, etc. There are so many companies, but also sports betting legalization in the US. That itself is driving so much of the conversation. It seems like everybody and their uncle is launching a sports book. We've seen ESPN do it. NBC's got one. Barstool Sports, Fanatics themselves. Everybody's launching a sports book because they want to get in some of the betting action. For people who are interested in this topic, you would have read about the moment there was legalization of sports betting in New York, in the state of New York, which happened just a few months ago. I think it was in March, was it, or February, that the figures were astronomical. I think New York, the state of New York, broke all records for sports betting. And where there is so much money coming in, of course, there's going to be so much innovation, right? New solutions, new startups about how to drive more fans into sports betting, and especially from free to play to real money betting. So that's another switch as well. So this is the sector-wise breakup. For the sector-wise breakup by each of the geographies, please go check out the reports. I can tell you quickly, fans and content dominates in Asia in a big way, heavy consumer market. So I think it's about almost 60% of all, 66% of all funding in the Asia Pacific region. In Europe and North America, the split is a bit more even. It's about 40, 40, 20 between the three sectors. All right, we have time for another poll. Ben, this time I'm going to talk about the top funded startups. Now, I think if you've been listening, which I hope you have, you should have a pretty good idea of where our top funded startup of 2021 comes from. Notice I say where and which, not which country, because there's USA, France, Canada, India, or does it come from the metaverse?
I voted guess where place.
Yeah, I mean, jokes apart, let's see what our solutions come from. All right. Has anybody voted? Yeah, we've got a few answers from the metaverse, and maybe it does come from there.
I can tell that metaverse got more votes than Canada.
Canada. Hey, guys, don't forget Dapper Labs is from Canada. So how much funding did they get? Because that's what we're going to come to next. Yeah, where are these companies that are raising a lot of money? Where are they located?
Important question from Franco Rossi. He asked, is esports considered in the global funding chart?
Absolutely, Franco. We can't have any analysis without esports, but we should clarify that how we consider esports, we don't count game publishers in our analysis or sports teams. Like FaZe Clan or whatever. That would be like counting how much funding Manchester United got, which is not a lot. We're a bit shit at the moment.
Someone took the bait and voted for Canada. Just one person.
Good man. But yeah, so we don't count esports game publishers because that would be like counting FIFA. That's like, or the teams. But we count all solutions that help the esports economy. I mentioned esports betting earlier, streaming solutions, anything, the gaming solutions that help players train. So all that stuff definitely comes in. but not the game publishers or the teams themselves. All right, we've got almost 40 votes in. I'm going to submit the answer to you now. Ben, do you have your vote in?
Yeah, I voted right at the beginning.
Of course you did. But yeah, 50% if you got it right. You have been paying attention, guys. It is Dream 11. I mentioned earlier, out of 1.8 billion that was invested in India, 1.2 came from Dream 11. But what I love is the split. Four different countries in the top four spots. That I think was the most surprising thing. US, you'd expect traditionally to lead this list. Just two companies from there. China, nothing from there. Another indication that the Chinese economy is maybe a step behind everything else that's happening in the world. But Dream 11 has raised a lot of money and they keep continuing to do so. Fanatics has raised a lot of money and they keep continuing to do so. In fact, this is one thing that we should clarify. Traditionally, we had not included Fanatics in our analysis, which is why Jacksonville has not appeared so highly in our previous reports. The reason was simple, because Fanatics was traditionally a e-commerce company. And we said e-commerce is Web 1.0. It's not that innovative anymore in 2018, 19, and 20. So we'll keep Fanatics out. But now Fanatics is doing so much more. They've got their own label of digital collectibles, which they hived off 350 million as a separate company. They themselves have launched a sports book I mentioned earlier. So they're in sports betting. They also own Candy Digital. That's a separate business entity, which is, by the way, none of Candy Digital's funding comes into this 995. So Fanatics is really pushing for doing a lot of interesting things in terms of innovation. So I think somebody asked if anything is happening in Jacksonville. It's just Fanatics, man. That's as far as we know for now.
Speaking
So
of
Dapple Labs and MindBody follow. Yep, Ben.
Speaking of questions, we don't have any. Is that a good or bad sign that I get lots of questions and you don't get any?
Yeah, maybe it could be that people are so happy with my explanations, or they're just going to sleep. One or the other, guys. Let us know.
Can I prepare the poll for you?
Sorry?
I'm going to prepare a poll for that.
Sure, maybe, yeah. Why not? Let's do that. Who puts you to sleep more, Ben or I? Guys, moving on. We're now breaking down this further, which is by region, which are the top companies in North America and also in Asia and Europe. You'll see that. But you'll see the two lists are top funding all time and top funding only in 2021. And you see that figure, Fanatics, at 3.6 billion. Yeah, they've raised a lot of money over the years and they continue to do so. Fanatics has become really aggressive. I can easily imagine this company IPOing in the not so distant future. But yeah, some of the other names that we know, Peloton, we're going to cover them in a bit of detail in the trends topic with this meteoric rise and now seemingly fall of this big name in fitness. Who else have we done? Yeah, MindBody, that is the company in San Luis Obispo. Ben talked about that city appearing on a list. Again, first time they raised 500 million. They've done some big rounds before, but nothing close to this. A lot of fitness play companies in this list. You'll see MindBody, you'll see Tonal, you see Tempo, Whoop, which is not exactly fitness, but a connected topic. Most interestingly for me in 2021 was the two names at 9 and 10 is Outside and All Trails. Companies which are focused on basically getting people outside their in the great outdoors, hiking and trekking and things like that. These are companies picking up a lot of attention in 2021. Really promising signs for people who are interested in these topics. Yeah, Ben.
One thing to add, whenever I look at this chart, and we have this for quite a while now, and we have two more of this for the other regions, is I always pay attention to the colors first, because we continue our framework here of purple is for athletes, blue is for fans, and green is for executives. And one thing that is always very obvious is that the third sector, so the more B2B one for executives, typically gets not too much love on these kind of charts, and it continues to do so. For example, last year it was only MindBody who was from sector 3 in the top 10. and the rest is always a split between for athletes and for fans. So this is what I focus on first before I come to the names, but just me looking at this chart.
Yeah, good point. I mean, you see the sector split directly on this page visually, and you'll see it on the other pages where I don't see any green in Asia Pacific. And the reason is, in fact, you'll see mostly blue. I mean, it's fairly even split, but even the ones that are in purple are fitness based usually. So they're also more consumer facing. The big markets, China and India, they're basically geared for mass production solutions which cater to a wide audience, uh, namely fantasy sports, namely fitness tech. Yeah, you'll see companies like Dream 11, Mobile Premier League, I mentioned, the fitness guys, Keep, Fitcher, CureFit. The most interesting one for me on this list, Ben, and we have to talk about these guys, Zrun. Have you bought any virtual horses yet?
Still not. There was one moment in time when there was a drop a couple months ago where I tried, but it didn't work because it was, can I say that it was a mess? Because it was one. And I didn't get a horse, and I haven't tried ever since. And I do not regret getting no horse.
Yeah, well, it's still a super interesting company. I haven't messed around with them too much myself, except for having seen the website. Also, great that they come from Sydney, establishing Aussie presence on our list. And by the way, there have been bigger deals that have taken place in 2022 already. Some big funding rounds, especially in India, a couple of 100 plus funding rounds that have happened in 2022. So, yeah, the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger.
Question from Berlin, as I see Laurent. Good to see you here. Are there any significant investments made in sports tech companies that are bringing environmental solutions?
Laurent, you should tell us. Is anybody giving you any money? Guys, Laurent is the founder of Active Giving. Always happy to give them a shout out. They basically, if you run, I think it's only running, right? If you run, they convert your running steps into planted trees, essentially. It's a great idea. But no, it's a topic that I was a mentor of a hackathon recently run by Sports Pro Media, where they were using this idea of social sustainability or sustainability in general, and how does that tie in with technology. We don't see too many companies in that space, but I think there is a lot of momentum gathering there. So no big companies yet, but hopefully we'll see quite a few soon. Tipu asks, isn't fan code part of Dream 11? Why is it called out separately? Interesting question, Tipu. Fan code technically is a Dream 11 funded company. They don't call it an acquisition. At least there's nothing publicly that we have seen. They've hived it off the same way that Fanatics has Candy Digital, which is a separate company which they are the primary owners of. In the same way is how I understand, having spoken to the Dream 11 team, that they consider fan code. So it's a separate business unit which is under the umbrella of a parent company. So they treat it separately. So we treat it separately. All right, coming to Europe quickly. Yeah, no surprises for who is leading the in top spot. Interestingly, you see a little bit of green here, more than certainly in Asia. Genius Sports raised a lot of money in the last year. Sport Alliance. In fact, there are 2 or 3 companies that will supply to gyms. eGym as well, Smart Gym Equipment Solutions. They do B2C and B2B work. So a few companies that are doing work in the gym side in Europe. But apart from that, what else do we want to talk about? A lot of fitness guys, Ura, Urban Sports Club. Yeah, the Santa company for me. Yeah, that was one I wanted to talk about. Playtomic, Ben. Have you been playing any paddle?
I played paddle twice in my life, and I generally enjoyed it. And Germany is very behind with regards to the number of paddle courts, so I hope they're going to add a few. I would say it's another sport where I would easily beat you.
Another sport alongside chess, because I don't know what other sports he's talking about. But yeah, we would say, actually, no, paddle, I'll give him. He has a background in tennis, which I don't have much of. But I might concede that one.
You're coming to Berlin next week, right?
Yeah, we got to hook up. We got to hook up.
Yeah, but it's 2-on-2, so we got to find 2 more.
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
No, but Playtomic, a Madrid-based company, they were the ones who were leading the funding round. But I've seen them everywhere. I remember seeing big hoardings of theirs in Dubai. Like, I mean, they're really taking the sport of paddle international, and they're growing as a sport is growing. which is a very powerful thing. Shout out to Pedro and all the guys at the Playtomic team.
We have a third player. Dennis is joining.
Oh, we have guys shouting in. Yeah, that's the way to go. We can crowdsource some.
Laurent, are you playing paddle? Are you in Berlin and are you playing paddle? And you said active giving is good for all sports, so we could
make it happen. Quick shout out to a question that Itai had a while ago about Minute Media. Again, Itai, I mean, we classify them as London. By the way, we know that Minute Media is also based in the US. They're an Israeli-founded company which calls their base London, which is also in the US. I mean, these are tricky ones, but we just go with whatever the company puts on their LinkedIn page or on their website, and that's what we will follow. So that's why Minute Media is classified as London.
Laurent, we got our paddle court.
I like it. This is an hour well spent. All right, guys. So that is the first part of our webinar done.